right. How's everyone doing? Good, good. So my name is Eddie. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO at Gusto. If you don't know, Gusto does payroll, benefits, and HR software for small businesses. And as Jerry was saying, some time ago, way before I kind of created these slides, we had a close rate at Gusto of about 25%. And through some of these tips that I'll share here, we got it to about 75%. And I'll try to explain to you why I think the closing process is something that, although not talked about very often, is something that people should think about. And again, some 12 actionable tips on how to improve that closing process. So, who wants to guess what 20 hours is? Close. It's about, at least from our experience, how many hours of mostly engineering time we spend to bring someone from initial phone screen to an actual presenting that candidate an offer. And here's kind of the breakdown. I ran this by our recruiting team and kind of confirmed this. For every one candidate that we extend an offer to, we spend about half an hour, about 30 minutes doing initial phone screens. We do that with 10 candidates. Of those 10 candidates, 4 of them get moved to the next stage where we do a 1-hour technical phone screen, which we call the black belt interview. Of those 4 candidates, half of them pass, and we bring them on site where we do a kind of a full day, almost a full day of interview. We spend about 5 hours with that candidate. Again, mostly engineering time as we interview them. And then finally, of those 2, usually 1 gets to the offer stage, and we spend about an hour doing an offer call with them. And so if you add that all up, it's about 20 hours per offer of mostly engineering time that we spend. That's a lot of engineering time and really expensive for the company. But obviously, not everyone you extend an offer to accepts the offer. And so if you're average, you're going to get about a 25% close rate. And the reason why I say that is because in our experience, when we extend an offer to a candidate, they're usually dealing with anywhere between 3 to 5 competing offers. And so statistically, that's about a 25 close rate if you're an average company. And half of you guys here are going to be, above that average, and half are going to be even less than that. But if you average it all out, it's about 25% close rate, which means that for every 1 offer you get, for every 4 offers you extend, you're going to have 1 person accept that offer, which is really, you're spending 80 hours, which is kind of a crazy thought, 80 hours of engineering time to get someone from a candidate to have them join your company. And so I would contend that if you look at that data, that you should really be spending more than 1 hour in an offer call to close that candidate, because it's a highly leveraged time that when you get someone at that stage of your hiring pipeline. So, assuming that you all agree with that, here's 12 actionable, mostly actionable steps to get that candidate to say yes to you. So the first one, I'll start off with this. It's not super actionable, but hopefully it's something that everyone here knows is really important. The most important thing that you can do to increase your close rate, to get candidates to join your company, is to really just have a team that is smart, friendly, passionate, and diverse and inclusive. And I really do believe in these attributes. They can be vicious cycles for your company, or they can be virtuous cycles for your company. If you have a lot of smart people in your company, they're going to know other smart people, and they'll refer them. And those candidates will want to join, a team of smart people. And one thing in particular that I'll call out is at Gusto, one thing we've really found is that diversity does beget diversity. And we spend a lot of time helping to trying to build a more diverse engineering team, and that in time has turned into a virtuous cycle for us to be a great place for candidates from underrepresented backgrounds to join our team. So that's the number one thing. I know it's not like you can't do it tomorrow, but hopefully you already have that today, and if not, it's something that takes time to build. But I would say that's the number one leverage thing that you could do to close candidates. All right, now everything else is going to be pretty much actionable from here. Number 2 is provide a really great candidate experience from the start. This is a picture that I took of a whiteboard that greets a candidate when they come in to interview. His name is Kwan. And what we do is the recruiter, puts some really nice notes on the whiteboard, draws some, really friendly, things on the whiteboard, and puts a schedule, exactly what the candidate should expect, who they're speaking with, and then also the area that person is going to be interviewed, that they're going to be focusing the interview on. That doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's actually huge for candidate experience. Imagine you're a candidate, you don't know what to expect, you're there all day. That's kind of a scary thought. Here's some other tips to provide a great candidate experience. One is set compensation expectations in the beginning. If you don't do that and there's a surprise at the end, that's not a good candidate experience. Greet the candidate and give them the interview agenda, as I showed in the previous slide. This one is really obvious, but oftentimes overlooked. Just be punctual. If you're calling someone, it sucks to be 3 minutes late, and that's totally understandable from your perspective. But from the candidate's perspective, they're waiting at the phone, and most companies will call them late, and so you will stand out if you actually call them on time. And then the fourth one is something that I have to remind interviewers oftentimes, and I'm frankly guilty of it myself occasionally. But in the world of Slack and email and all that stuff, don't check Slack while you're giving an interview to someone. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen, and that's just, first of all, it's really rude, and second of all, it's a poor candidate experience. The third tip that I'll share is to pair program in your production code base. One of our interviews that we do is called the working session. And one thing is we have a lot of pairing stations. We do a lot of pairing at Gusto. We actually give them a problem that we ourselves have solved at Gusto. It solves a number of different things. One, it gives them a sense of really what it's like to work in your code base. And the second thing is it really gives you a chance to work to know what it's like to work with your peers, which is a great candidate experience. I wouldn't recommend pair programming on a feature that you're currently working on. There's obviously some liability issues with that. But one thing I would suggest is maybe there's a feature you've already shipped, and you can keep that branch on your local machine and just bring that branch back whenever you have an interview to do with a candidate. And to John's point, it's really important to have standardization in your interview process to reduce bias. And using the same problem that you have in a branch is one way to accomplish that. So pair program in your production code base. The fourth tip is have quick turnaround and fast communications with your candidate. This is a quote from one of our engineers who joined Gusto. And they actually wrote a blog post. If you you could search it on Google, visualizing a job search. He wrote a blog post shortly after joining Gusto. And the one thing he said there is that the number one life hack to putting employees' butts in seats is to respond to emails in a timely manner. And this particular engineer is very data driven. So he even went so far as to chart the contact points with different companies that he was interviewing with. 0 here is the day that he accepted the offer to join Gusto, and then this is kind of like T minus X many days. And each dot, as I said, is a contact point that he had with the company. The top chart is the contact points that he had with Gusto. And so you can see that it was really 22 days from initial contact to the point where he accepted the offer. That's all it took. In comparison, another company he interviewed with took 35 days. I started the process before us, actually, and still did not get on site with that company. It wasn't that he didn't pass the interview. It's just that the company was really slow in getting back to him. This is probably Google or something like that. I've heard they're really slow. And so just from a candidate experience perspective, speed is a competitive advantage that you'll have. One thing that can help with touch points is SMS. Utilize SMS. And I'll read this. This is a quote from one of the technical recruiters at Gusto. And she said, I always call candidates from my cell for match talks. That's our kind of initial phone screen. And prep calls. During the prep, I tell them, this is my cell. So if you're running late or have any questions before the onsite, text me. And what that does is this texting relationship is now established. feel free to text them during key moments right before the offer call to confirm, to congratulate them when they get approved by the hiring committee, whenever I need to hop on a call, and whenever I need to send a gift, sending documents to sign. She texts them, and that's a practice that our entire recruiting team does. With candidates, when they're interviewing, they're kind of hard to get in touch with. You have to email them, schedule a time. But SMS is a way to kind of like have one-way communication with that candidate, keep them in the loop, and again, have that frequent touch points with the candidate. And then texting also, by the way, establishes kind of a more casual relationship with the candidate, allows that recruiter to build trust with that candidate. Number 5. So Gusto, as I said, we do payroll, benefits, HR. One of the things that really sets us apart from other companies out there is really the quality of the product. And so we like to show that off. Instead of sending an email saying, look how we have a great product, we actually like to send a link to a demo account and have them try it out. And one thing I try to do early on was spend the time to learn about the candidate. I stalk them a little bit on LinkedIn and Facebook. I find out what their like kind of personal interests are, and I'll actually create a Gusto account. It's a demo account that kind of has little hints in there that show that I took the time to get to know them. So, for example, I might populate this account with employee names of philosophers if I find out that this person actually likes philosophy. And so it kind of like just shows that like they're not, one candidate in a huge funnel that you're running, that you've actually taken the time to point them out, and that you really want that candidate, you really want to talk to them. So if you have a product where you can create demo accounts, like try to personalize it for them. Number 6 is group offer calls. If you interview with Gusto and get an offer, and I hope everyone here does, we do this thing called a group offer call. Basically, when the offer call is scheduled, we actually get every single interviewer in that room on that conference call. We call the candidate. They think they're just talking to the recruiter and the hiring manager, but really they're on the call, at least in the beginning, with the entire interview panel, everyone that they met at Gusto when they came in. And what we do is we actually have each of those interviewers, we go around the table, and each of them shares one thing about that candidate, about them, that they really enjoyed. Maybe they aced this particular interview, so they were really impressed with their technical expertise. Or maybe they really felt like they connected with them, they thought they were a great culture fit. Really specific, short, short speech of love to the candidate to make them really feel special. And by the way, when we start that call, we say we're excited to offer extend an offer for you to join Gusto. Everyone in that room is kind of like cheering and like pounding the table and making like a really big deal about it. It really makes that candidate feel really special, and for us at Gusto, that's a really special moment because again, we spent many hours talking to many candidates to get someone to the point where we were excited to give them an offer. And so we are genuinely really excited about that. But that also, again, provides a great candidate experience. Post-offer call. So what we do is we actually have every single person who interviewed them, who was also on the call, to send a follow-up email to the candidate, sharing with them, why they're excited for them to join Gusto. And so the candidate is really kind of like now, getting an outpouring of love and excitement from your company. Number 8 is try to think of a thoughtful, personal gift that you can give the candidate. During the interview process, you get to know a candidate. It's not all just like coding and technical interviews and link lists. It's hopefully you've gotten to know the candidate and really want to work with them, and you know something personal about them. So try to think of a gift. One candidate was really into craft beer, so there's like a craft beer store in Soma that I ran down and got a gift card for that candidate. And I also delivered like a 6-pack of beer to them at their door. So things like that. They don't have to be a lot of money, but just show a little bit of thoughtfulness. Really go a long way in showing that candidate that you care. Sometimes I've been actually known to actually invite candidates over to my house, and we just have dinner together. And sometimes we'll even invite their significant other. to just kind of hang out, and that's a really nice touch. I would say this is for candidates where, kind of really senior candidates that you want to join Gusto. We try to arrange phone calls with some of our investors, and we're fortunate to have really good investors at Gusto, and also investors that are really open to helping us out with closing candidates. And so, when necessary, we will have the investor send them an email or get on the phone with the candidate to kind of tell them why they, as an investor, were so excited about Gusto, what the potential is, and again, get that candidate really excited. And for the candidate, like, talk to like a famous investor, like that's a really special moment. That's like that really will set you apart. Again, when appropriate, number 10 is we will actually post offer if the candidate wants, bring them back to Gusto, talk to someone on our finance team, maybe sometimes even the CFO, and have them walk through the equity piece of your offer. If you guys are working at startups, many of you guys have salary and equity as part of your compensation package. Salary is obviously easy to understand. It's an apples to apples comparison to other offers that candidate has gotten. But the equity piece is not so much, right? And I think it adds a lot of color to the candidate if they can sit down with someone on your finance team whose job it is to understand the valuation and the valuation now and in the future, walk through what assumptions need to be true in order for that to happen, and really paint a picture that is realistic to the candidate, so that they can see this as more than just a crazy number that you threw out there. So having an equity chat with the finance team is again in the vein of really great candidate experience. Almost at the end here. So number 11 is invitation to team events and all hands. So even though the candidate has not accepted the offer, occasionally, and this is like if the timing just happens to be right, we will invite that candidate to an all hands, or maybe we have an offsite event. We're going to build bikes or something like that. We'll invite that candidate, and so they get a chance of what it's like to be a part of the team, even though they haven't accepted. Can't always do that because sometimes all hands events have sensitive information. So I would check with the team with the agenda on that all hands. But if it's appropriate to share, and hopefully you've also in the process gained a lot of trust with that candidate, I think it's okay to bring that candidate to get a sense of a day in the life there. The last thing, and I'll end with a somewhat non-actionable thing, but again, probably more important than any of the 11 before, is really just make your company a great place to work. There's no tips, no hack that you can do that will hide that from the candidate. As John said, they're really good at pattern matching, and they'll see that through that if you don't have a great place to work. And so the last tip I'll give is just make your company a great place to work. That's it. And as we say at Gusto, go with Gusto.